Sorry about that.
No worries.
Sandra, do you want to do a video and audio check really quick? And then...
Sure. Am I working?
Yep.
Okay.
So much.
Do we have everyone we need as far as presenters?
We do, Councilmember Murillo. I think we're ready to go.
All right, that sounds good. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. Happy November. I can't believe it's already in November. We're just a week under before election, so I'm sure there's busyness in community right now. We will go ahead and start with the approval of the October 6th meeting minutes. I don't have any changes and I approve as written. Councilmember Medina and Marcano, are you okay with the approval, or are there any changes you need to make?
I'm good with the minutes.
Good on my end.
All right, so meeting minutes are approved. Do we have any announcements?
Councilmember Murillo, this is Jessica. Just one announcement for the mobile response team update. Courtney Tassin got called to DC to receive a grant, and so she's not with us today. So if we can push that to December, that would be helpful.
Yes, that works. And I'm sorry, which agenda item is that?
The AMRT, the mobile response team update.
Okay, 4D. Okay, yeah, we can move item 4D to December. Any other announcements? Doesn't look like it's the case. All right, then we'll just jump right into our business with the City of Aurora housing strategy.
Good morning, everybody. And council members, good morning. This is Alicia. It's good to see you all again. I have the update on the implementation of the housing strategy. So I'll be sharing my screen. Give me just 1 second here. Oh, there were some updates that made it a little easier. Can you see this okay?
Yeah, but it's not in presentation mode.
Give it just 1 more
There
second.
it is.
Sounds, yep, looks good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so this is our update on the housing strategy and the work that we're doing in the team through Housing and Community Services. Just a quick overview of our agenda. We'll talk a little bit about our vision. We'll talk about our strategy policies, and our the goals that were set through the housing strategy. We have created some groups, so I'll provide a quick overview of the housing strategy working groups that are helping us implement the goals in the housing strategy. Our favorite part, we'll be talking about accomplishments. One of them is a housing locator, which is strategy 7. So we're really excited about that coming on board, and we just want to make sure you're updated on that. We have some introductions to make. One of the things that we were going to do through the housing strategy was hire a consultant, and we had received funding from DOLA to hire this consultant. We've hired the consultant and had our kickoff meeting, so we'll be doing some introductions there. And then just overview on stats of the work that is coming from our current core programs in housing, and homelessness program updates as well. So I will get started, but I just wanted to provide a quick overview on all of the things that we have for the agenda. As it was presented earlier this year on our housing strategy, we want our vision is to be a city that is welcoming, that is safe, and that we are empowering the uniqueness of the places and that are in the city of Aurora and promoting a strong economy. So that vision continues to be our vision, continues to be our core. We're pushing everything forward with that vision in mind. Some of the policies that were adopted through the housing strategy are the preservation of the existing stock that we already have in Aurora. Expand on the inventory of that stock, so bringing on additional affordable housing, protecting the homeowners and renter community that we have, and providing additional support and programs. We've seen rental assistance. We have emergency mortgage assistance that's coming up. We continue to work on our housing counseling programs. Also, that's important for the community because that's who we are here to serve. At the same time, in order to continue to do that, we have to strengthen on city capacity for addressing housing issues in general. So these are mainly the strategies that we are pushing with on making the affordable or the goals that were identified in the strategy a reality. So yeah. Super quick there. I think this is information that you've already seen, so I'm trying not to be super repetitive. But just more specifically on the housing strategy goals, there were 12 goals that were identified through the housing strategy. Specifically with us focusing on incentivizing for the affordable development community to be, or the developers to create more affordable housing in the city of Aurora. So there's a strong focus on that. We are doing everything that we can to be more innovating on the projects and the programs that we have internally. One of those programs that you have seen that has worked very well is the community development investment process. We'll be going over the pipeline and all of the units that have been created through that process. We are working internally on streamlining rental inspections. It's a subject that continues to come up, so we're continuing the work on that. Making changes in our UDO, figuring out, all right, what are the things that we're doing right now that are working? What were some changes? What are some of those changes that we need to make? Again, I'm not going through every single one of them. I understand this is information that was already presented in the past, and I really want to focus on the actual accomplishments throughout the year. But happy to answer any questions you may have on any of these. I had mentioned that we had created 3 groups that focus on helping us implement the housing strategy. Those groups are communications and community engagement, policy and housing development, and then housing community development programs management. With communications and community engagement, we're looking at how we are connecting with the community, making sure that we're actually reaching the community. One of the barriers that we see many times in housing is that sometimes we can have a really strong focus on online in the virtual world, but sometimes the community that really needs to hear and see the services that we're providing, they don't necessarily have access to this virtual world. So we're looking at a full picture at how we're communicating and engaging with the community, and bringing in everyone together internally in the city so that we can be strong together through different departments in the city. In the Policy and Housing Development Group, we have representation from planning, obviously from Housing and Community Services, which is the division that I manage. We're trying to look at things with a diversity and equity and inclusion lens. And so we're looking at, okay, what are the resources that we currently have? What are the changes that we need to make in order to execute on the goals that were adopted through the housing strategy? And then the Housing and Community Development Programs Management Group is focusing on that internal staffing changes that we need to make so that the team is sustainable in carrying out all of the changes that come with the housing strategy. So through communications and community engagement, we have right now there's a draft in progress for the actual plan. So the whole plan, we're trying to put together everything that was done by my predecessor, and then we have essentially looked, me coming in the picture as the new manager, as a checkpoint. What has been done? Where do we need to move forward? And part of that is the implementation plan in the group. The goal is to strengthen our partnerships with the community, update all of our marketing materials, whether it's things that we're printing out and handing out to individuals, or whether it's our website and the resources that we provide in the virtual world. In Policy and Housing Development, we had updated the group that we had received a grant from the Department of Local Affairs to hire and retain a consultant to do a housing feasibility study. That consultant will be introduced shortly by part of the work, but part of the work that the Policy and Housing Development Group is doing is overseeing and helping make sure that we are looking at all of resources as that study takes place. We also got our first land banking deal, which was recently passed through council. Thank you so much for the support. It was definitely a milestone for our group, and we want to continue down the path of, again, finding resources so that we can promote the affordable housing development in the city of Aurora. So we have created a list, and we're looking at other properties as we are able to specifically identify those properties. We'll be sure to share those with the group. And then the community development investment financing rounds, and those are the rounds that we provide gap financing through to build additional affordable housing in the city. Those are home funds, CDBG, ARPA, and PAB is what's coming up in January for the next round. We have the rounds twice a year. And we have funded and supported over 1,400 units. Internally with the group, we're looking at our sustainability. We're looking at making sure that the team has the resources that it needs, and that roles and responsibilities are aligned as needed, or on what makes the best sense for the team, so that we can make sure that all of the work that is on the team is sustainable. Let's see. We are also looking at our programs, what's working, what's not working, making updates there. Obviously, changes have happened because of the pandemic, so we want to make sure that we are sensitive to how that has affected the team, and that we're providing the resources so that we can so that we can move forward and continue the programs that were already in place. Super quick. We wanted to share and make sure you get the opportunity to look at the units that we have promoted through the housing and community development financing process. As I explained, we have supported over 1,400 units So 1,430 units that are being built, and they are all affordable housing in the city of Aurora. And we are going as low as 30%. We can't really go over 80%, but there are some gaps there, and we're definitely considering that. The process was initially put together back in 2020. And so between December of 2020 and 2022, this is what we have been able to accomplish through this process. So we definitely believe that this is one of those incredibly innovative processes that's really making a difference in the type of housing that we're building in the city of Aurora. For strategy 7, it's a whole strategy, and I'm gonna let Emma speak for a second. She took the lead on putting in place the housing locator for the city of Aurora. So I'm just gonna pause for a second, and Emma, would you please give us an update on the housing locator?
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. Hey all, I'm a night manager of homeless programs. Oh, Alicia, you're not sharing anymore. Do you wanna share your screen again? Or I can share mine really quick, I don't know.
I'll share it. One sec.
Okay, great, thanks. I can talk while you're working on that. So yeah, strategy 7 was to get some kind of software that helps with folks finding units. And we went through several different options, looking at what would work best for us. And ultimately we went with Emphasis software, which already existed in the area. And we went with that because there were already a lot of landlords listing in that. So it would have been having folks already familiar with it, and just made sense since it already had stuff listed. So an overview of this, it launched early October, and yeah, it is a great benefit for consumers and landlords. It is a free search and listing tool for housing related resources. It's multilingual, it's mobile friendly, and it has a toll-free call center that is run through the Emphasis software. So folks can call in Monday through Friday from 7 to 6 p.m. And so it's really accessible for folks. They can ask questions. It also has a tool that folks can message in on as well and ask questions. So that's super helpful. And it includes local resources and links to like rental assistance and things like that. And folks can sign up for email alerts about new listings that they have tailored to whatever they're looking for. So you can put in like whatever price range you're looking at and other specifics for units, and the software will email you when a unit comes online that matches those criteria. And yeah, it's just really user friendly. It's easy to go through. And for landlords, we wanted to make sure it worked well for landlords because we wanted to make it enticing for them to list their units in. And it's totally free. Landlords can put in as many listings as they'd like, and advertise in all types of rental housing. So it can be for like singles, multifamily, condos, whatever. And yeah, listings can be hidden from public view when rented to reduce inquiries, or be easily activated again when they're available, so that landlords don't have to list multiple times. And for the community and other agencies, it's really helpful for recovering resources in times of disasters. So for instance, if an apartment building is on catches fire and we need to find new units for all the residents were there, this can be a tool we can use to find units more quickly. So yeah, this is something we're really excited about. We've gotten some pretty good reviews so far, and I'm gonna have one of my staff members going through it weekly just to kind of make sure all the units are looking good, and flagging units that maybe look like they could be scams. So yeah, I think
Emma?
it's gonna, Yeah, go ahead.
Can you mention the trainings happening alongside
Oh,
this
yeah.
as well, please?
Thank you, of course. Yeah, so other than just the housing locator tool, we launched at the same time some trainings for landlord recruitment and housing navigation with local case managers and landlord recruiters. So it is taught by our local landlord recruiter expert, Kathy Blair. She works with the Housing Authority, and she made this based off of her many, many years of experience working with landlords and finding people housing. So we saw that as a real need in that a lot of our case managers maybe weren't super familiar with how to navigate finding folks housing and speaking with landlords. We've gotten really good reviews on that so far. We're having our third training on that tomorrow, and it's a 2-part training, so we'll have more trainings in conjunction with that probably early January. Any questions on that?
Councilor Murillo?
Awesome. Go ahead,
Councilmember?
Councilmember
I'm sorry.
Marcano.
All right, sorry. All right, apologies. I didn't know if my microphone was busted or not. So I just want to provide a comment, and that's that the search engine optimization for this tool is currently basically non-existent. If it weren't for the fact that I had heard where to find this at our meeting last week, I would not have been able to find it through a Google search. So I don't know if communications can help with SEO for this, but this is something that I think is going to be really, really useful for our residents, but I just want to make sure that they can find it.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you. I'll bring that up with communications and with emphasis software as well. Otherwise, we'll also make sure that we're advertising pretty well about where you can get to it.
All right, great. And also it seems to be very, very slow to load. I'm not sure if that's a temporary issue or not, but yep, that's all I've got.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Medina, do you have any questions or comments?
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Emma. All right. Since there's no more questions there, I'm trying to keep time in mind, but I did want to introduce David and Nora. I think Nora's having issues getting on, but David, are you on? I think it's easier if you introduce yourselves.
Yes, good morning. It's so wonderful to be with you. I hope everyone is well. My name is David Rose, and I'm founding principal of DRA. And Nora Lake Brown is our project manager for the assignment in Aurora and a longtime principal at DRA. She's been with the firm for more than 30 years. And I do think Nora's having trouble logging on and even having a phone link. So I'll manage our presentation and discussion and answer any questions that you have this morning. Alicia has asked that we give a brief introduction of the firm and our history, and then review our scope of services, our deliverables, and our schedule with you to help make the housing strategy in Aurora as effective as possible in meeting these ambitious goals that you've just laid out, and then Alicia did such a great job summarizing. So DRA was founded in 1980 as a public interest consulting firm working expressly with both the public sector and the private sector. And we have worked with more than 300 jurisdictions over 45 states in the United States since our founding. We've advised transactionally on more than $11 billion of affordable housing development finance and transactions, both in the rental space and in the homeownership space. At a public policy level, DRA is known nationally for our work in, excuse me one second, our work in a variety of housing policy settings. We helped create the concept of affordable housing trust funds as a permanent source of revenue and investment for low-income housing development and finance, dedicated and reinvested in the production and preservation of affordable housing. Secondly, we have worked with the development of inclusionary housing and land value capture programs. We have served as expert witnesses on cases defending these programs before both the United States Supreme Court successfully and several state Supreme Courts. We've also helped perfect the methodology for adopting commercial development nexus or impact fee studies. We know that as part of your strategy, both inclusionary housing and impact fee studies are critical components of your strategy, and we hope to get to that during our the second phase of our work with you. In addition, we've worked on asset management strategies and program guidelines and implementation efforts and best practices for both affordable rental, home ownership, community land trust, and permanent supportive housing solutions for homeless and formerly homeless or unhoused persons and households. So DRA's work is nationally regarded both in the context of policy and program development and transactions, and we bring this unified public-private sector view to best practices and state-of-the-art underwriting to your programs. We're also expertly and authoritatively familiar with all sources of federal, state, local, and private sector subsidies for affordable housing. So we will be focused very closely with Jessica and Alicia on leveraged opportunities to, you have some resources not insubstantial in Aurora, but certainly far less, as you're well aware, than is needed to meet the overall needs that you've identified in that strategy. That's a brief introduction to the firm. With regard to Nora, who I think is still not on, Nora has her graduate degree from the Harvard Kennedy School in urban economics and public policy. She's been a principal with the firm for 30 years and is our chief economist for both our inclusionary housing land value capture analysis, as well as our nexus fee and methodology and implementation analyses. We're very proud of Nora, and even though I'm doing a poor job of representing her this morning, we've been working closely with Alicia and her entire management staff and Jessica's staff to launch the program, which we're now underway on. So let me pause and see if you have any questions about the background of the firm and our experience and expertise in serving you. If not, I can go on, Alicia, and summarize the scope of services, deliverables, and schedule that we'll be undertaking for you.
David, I haven't been able to join by audio, I think, so.
Oh, hey, Nora. Well, Nora, do you want to say a little bit about, yeah, I can hear you. Can the committee hear Nora?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Nora, do you want to do a personal introduction and add to the firm's overview for the assignment?
As David, I'm sure mentioned, I didn't get to hear all of his introduction. I've been working with the firm over 30 years, and we specialize, I think from the very beginning, we've really specialized in trying to help communities strategically employ their resources, financial, land, and other, and political will to able to increase their production and preservation of affordable housing. And we've encountered many of the same issues that we see that you're facing here in Aurora in terms of rising housing costs and not as many resources as you would like, and we hope to help be able to contribute to your strategy.
Thank you, Nora. Again, let me just pause to see if the committee has questions about our background and expertise. Otherwise, I'll invite Nora to provide an overview of the scope of services that we're undertaking on your behalf, the deliverables, and the overall strategy, as Nora has said, that we're strategic view that we're bringing to maximizing resources for your own policy purposes. So, any questions from the committee at this point?
Councilmember Murillo.
Go ahead, Councilmember Marcano.
All right, thank you. And thank you, David and Nora, for introducing yourselves. I do have a question around your experience in helping jurisdictions develop public housing strategies, including, developing ways to finance construction and property acquisition for permanently affordable housing, specifically around the cooperative model.
Thank you, Mr. Marcano. Is that, when you say public housing, are you referring to traditional public housing as in public housing or are you talking about assisted housing that's affordable, or both?
Either or. I'm just trying to see what we are able to, what your experience is
Okay.
in this realm.
Well, DRA does have an extensive public housing practice. We're actively involved in public housing asset repositioning strategies under Section 18, as we're talking now, as well as RAD conversions. We've been involved in several $1 billion of public housing repositioning, and our current transactional pipeline is about $500 million of projects that are actively in pre-development, pre-financing, or construction and conversion as we speak. So I would say that on the sort of traditional public housing side, we're again authoritative and expert, and I think quite skilled. Many of our clients are public housing authorities. It's not the case here in Aurora, of course, but and we've collaborated, I think, well and often between public housing authorities and their city and county partners. So to the degree that those relationships are something that you want to look at, Nora will talk about leveraged resources in a moment in our scope, and certainly project-based vouchers, existing public housing assets in need of repositioning and reinvestment to benefit the residents in the neighborhoods is a strategy that we're well positioned to help you maximize, I would say. You asked about, let's see, permanent affordable housing. I think you're, that's sheet music to our ears. DRA has advocated for permanent affordability over the more than 40 years of our practice. It's hard to remember dating back, but you know, the old HUD sort of lump sum subsidy programs, 221D3, D4, 2 through 6, had very short expiration periods on them, 15 years often. And even the early years of the tax credit program, I remember,
like this could only happen to me.
15-year term on them. So we've advocated for permanent affordability really since the firm's inception, because the cost of subsidizing new or rehabilitating existing housing as affordable is so massive. And to then have that housing convert to market rate in a community like Aurora, where you're facing speculative pressures, market pressures, cost increases, price increases, is in our view kind of intolerable, because to re-subsidize those units is ever more expensive, and failing that, we're at risk of evicting the low-income tenants onto the street and converting to market rate. So I would say we've perfected strategies, including regulatory agreements recorded against the property. For rental housing development, we're big fans of ground leases. I know that part of our strategy with you is looking at publicly owned land in the city. And so we will be working with Jessica and Alicia on ground lease strategies, again, which we're quite skilled at and quite experienced in. Cooperative housing, I will say, is not a key focus for DRA. So we haven't done a lot on that. I will say we did a fair amount in the 80s on that, especially in Texas. But it's not, and we're familiar with the cooperative housing model in New York City, where we've done a fair amount of work, a very different regulatory environment, certainly, than Colorado and Aurora. But I will say it's not a main focus of ours as a strategy to address the issues of affordable rent and affordable ownership, but it's something that we're familiar with.
All right, thank you.
Okay, to give an overview then of our deliverables and our scope of work, as you can see on the slide here, we will be doing a fair bit of background research to make sure that our strategy is consistent and based on the economic and other conditions in Aurora today and projections going forward. So we'll be doing some summary of market, where the market is, particularly the price, sales prices and rents of market rate housing, and at what levels those are affordable today, and also key housing needs. We have the detailed needs analysis in your strategy document, and we'll be updating a few of the most critical of these, particularly looking at housing cost burden and families at what income level and how much they're paying for housing currently. In order to get a sense of your housing market economics, we'll be doing an economic analysis that will start with developing some residential prototypes that are designed to represent a range of housing that's being built and or proposed in Aurora today in the near future. And those might range from single family development up to townhome style to higher density podium style construction, wood over podium, and other densities as may be appropriate for your city. And we're working with city planning and housing staff right now to move forward on those. From those, we'll do an affordability gap analysis. So we'll develop estimated development cost budgets from the land, including buildings, permits and fees, and all soft costs for each of the prototypical developments as market rate, as a starting point to understand the current economics in Aurora. And so we'll look at those costs and we'll compare that to what people in Aurora at different income levels can afford to pay for housing, either renter or owner. So that will identify at what income levels you have a gap and how much the gap is in order to produce or subsidize market rate housing and affordable type prototypes as well, to make them affordable at different income levels. We'll be looking at your existing local resources, mostly federal in terms of financial resources, your land, as David mentioned, and other types of development incentives, density bonuses, as others that you may not have pursued already, as potentials to help produce housing. We'll look at leverage financing sources that you can use along with your local resources to help create housing that'll include federal, state, and private sources. And then to support one new potential source of revenue locally is a residential nexus fee on residential housing that would generate funds for affordable housing, and a non-residential nexus fee, which would be levied against non-residential development to also generate funds for housing. Those are based on kind of the nexus or the economic linkage between new development in Aurora and the need for additional affordable housing going forward. Then we'll help you look at your gaps, your potential resources, your existing resources, and kind of give some estimates of how much housing you can support or estimated to produce over various time periods, 5 and 10 years, based on the amount of resources existing and prospective, and help you select priority actions for implementation in our last task. So that's an overview of the scope of work, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Medina, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Councilmember Marcano?
Not at the moment.
I have a few thoughts bubbling up, but I'm not sure they are a clear, concise question at this point. And in the interest of time, I think I will defer to following up via email. If y'all wouldn't mind connecting via email, I'd love to just have another opportunity to connect with you all. Don't want to cut off the conversation, but just also want to be mindful of time as well.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And this is meant to serve as an update on what's going on. So yeah, we'll continue with the update if that's okay. And then we're happy to answer any questions via email.
Alrighty, that sounds good. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nora, and thank you, David. I am going to do my best to move us along. There's a lot happening, so we're excited to share all of the awesome work that the team is doing. Nonetheless, our core programs are still happening and they're strong, including housing rehab in serving the Aurora residents. We have administered over $400,000 in just rehab programs and maintaining our current housing stock. Our housing counseling, mortgage assistance, EMAP, reverse mortgages, all of that good stuff is still happening. And then also obviously the community investment process is producing a lot of new units in regards to affordable housing in the city. We also have some achievements, obviously, on the homelessness side. And then Emma can go over those real quick. So Emma, if you can do that, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Hi again. So just a quick overview of some of the things that have happened this year. In January, we did our annual point in time count, which we recently got back the results of that. And it showed us a 43% increase in people experiencing homelessness in Aurora. So that helps make decisions for us moving forward and helps guide our decisions. So useful to have that. We're starting to plan the 2023, what year is it? 2023 point in time count. We are in the process of planning that at the moment. And just so you know, that will be the last Monday of January. So mark your calendars if you'd like to participate in that. We're also looking at doing a magnet event in conjunction with that the following day for people experiencing homelessness who are living in their vehicles. That is a notoriously hard group of folks to count accurately. So having them come to one place will make that a little bit easier. And that will be another opportunity for volunteering that will actually be during the day instead of late evening. So 2 options for you there if you'd like to.
Emma, sorry,
Sure.
I can jump in. What time will the point in time count be on the 30th?
So on the 30th, we haven't decided exactly what time yet, but it will most likely be either very, very late at night or like 4 a.m. It's usually one or the other, and we haven't decided yet.
Okay.
We're going to be having an information session on December 6th for anyone who would like to come and learn more about point in time. I'll be working with Crystal Dukes on sharing that out so that we can get as many community members involved as possible.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks. And then also in January of 2022, we had our second safe outdoor space open. That was the Restoration Christian Ministries one that's off of 6th Avenue. And it had tents to start with. And that's been going ever since. And then in April, the camping ordinance was passed. You all know about that. And also in April, that is when we added the pallet shelters to that restoration safe outdoor site. And that was as part of the camping ordinance is how we paid for that. And we've had pallets there ever since. And then in August, we added additional pallets for abatement use. So anyone who is camping and their camp gets abated by us at the city, they are offered shelter at these new pallet shelters. They are currently full. They've been widely used. People are pretty excited about going to them. We're still working on getting the second site up with an additional 10 pallets. We're just having some difficulties getting the electrical panel. I'm sure you all know that there is some difficulty with supply chains right now. So we're just waiting on that, and then we'll hopefully have that up in the next couple months. But yeah, the pallet shelters have been very well used, much more so than folks were accepting Comitis, for instance. And most recently, we, as I already talked about, launched the housing locator software. And also in October, I hired a new staff member to replace my old position, and we are in the process of working on hiring some more staff to help with abatement processes and eventually outreach as well. So building capacity, and hopefully we'll be able to respond to homelessness more quickly and holistically. Any questions?
Questions, just a comment. I would ask you to rephrase the achievements part. I strongly disagree that the camping ordinance was the achievement of the city. I understand what you're getting at, the timeline of things that have impacted and the work that you've been involved with, is whether or not that was in your purview or not. But that would be an ask on my part, because I personally think that's a really harmful policy, but I do think it does impact how you guys do your work. So I think noting it for informational navigational purposes is important.
Sure. Happy to rephrase that in the future. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Right, thank you.
Great. If there are no other questions, I just want to wrap up by saying thank you to all of the organizations that are helping us internally, because we couldn't do this work with all of the support. So thank you to all of those that are supporting us, from legal to planning and development, who has been very substantial in helping us guide our efforts. We have representation and voice from our Citizens Advisory Committee. And again, making sure that we are leading our implementing the housing strategy with a diversity, equity, and inclusion mentality. So thank you to all of those that support us. And then that concludes our presentation. So if there are any other questions that I can answer in general about this update, I am happy to do that.
Councilmember, any questions or comments?
I do have another question. Thank you, Councilmember Murillo. Alicia, you may recall the meeting that we had with Craig with the Aurora Housing Authority, and the information that was given over to him, and I think shared with y'all, around putting together a pro forma to see if the mixed use cross-subsidized model was feasible in Aurora. Did we ever get a response back from Craig on that? I do know that the information was sent over. I just hadn't seen anything come back through my inbox.
Councilmember Marcano, they're scheduled to come to the December Horns meeting to provide some feedback on that.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other questions?
Nope. Good. Thanks.
I have a question. So I really am happy to hear that all of this is being done with a DEI lens. I'm wondering if so we had these conversations at our last budget meeting around I didn't support this. I don't think the other two council members on the committee supported the removal of one of the DEI positions. This is a really great example, and I'd like to learn more about the ways in which different departments work collaboratively. So I think I don't know if it's a comment or just a question. I guess knowing that this is a specific way that y'all will engage with the office, I'm wondering if there's any more clarity that you can offer, maybe if not at this time, after the fact, on how you work with the office, and I guess just like from a planning perspective, what are the impacts of the loss of that position? Perhaps you can't answer that second part. That's really better directed that to the department itself, but I'd love to know more about how y'all work with the DEI office in terms of like staff time and just the scope of the relationship.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm able to respond directly on that specific position. I can tell you that for purposes of the housing strategy, they are part of a couple of the housing strategy working groups that are helping us implement the strategy. So as we're having conversations on direction moving forward, what makes sense, what are some of those mistakes that we don't want to make again that have been done in the past in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They are empowered to guide us there because they are the professionals. So we include them in all of our conversations. They recently provided a training for our team on the importance of the work that they're doing and why housing is important. And again, just making sure that we are doing the work that we're doing with in diversity, equity, and inclusion education perspective. So yeah, they're incorporated in the housing strategy working group, so the communication is consistent back and forth.
Good.
I think that's it. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next agenda item. Who is our speaker? Is that you, Jessica?
So it looks like the next item is the Aurora at Home strategic plan. So Emma, are you ready?
Sorry about that.
Okay,
I am ready.
We'll try to speed up. That item was took much longer than we thought it would. So we will definitely speed up and try to get through some of these other items that we had to push to this month. So I want to make sure people get to their items. So go ahead, Emma.
Yep, I can go through this fairly quickly. All right. Sharing my screen. Sorry, I did that weird. Let me redo that. Okay. Am I in presenter mode now? Or is it sharing my?
You still have.
It's sharing my other one, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, let me switch screens. I apologize. Okay, is that one correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, Aurora at Home strategic plan. So the Aurora at Home is a group of nonprofit and government leaders who work collaboratively to help address the challenges presented by housing insecurity and homelessness. And we have been working for quite some time on creating a strategic plan to help address housing insecurity and homelessness. And I'm just going to go over that now, what our findings were. Just a really quick timeline. So Aurora at Home has been around since 2013. In 2020, the housing plan was created, and then 2021, we formed the leadership team. And since then, we were starting to create the strategic plan, which was finally finished in August of this year. And then we will be moving forward with the plan implementation after, starting now, basically. So the Aurora at Home vision, or excuse me, mission, is partnering with nonprofits, governmental agencies, and the city of Aurora to provide and coordinate a complex array of services and supports. And our vision is to work cross-jurisdictionally and organizationally to collaborate in support of strategic coordination of culturally responsive, trauma-informed services to make sure that homelessness is rare, brief, and one time. And while we were writing our vision and value statements, the phrase trauma-informed came up a lot. That was something our group really wanted to stress. And then definitely the making homelessness rare, brief, and one time. We talked about that a lot as well. We talked a lot about equitable services. Again, trauma-informed care is even in the second bullet there. And then we want to make sure that we are trying to understand homelessness and understanding that it's a complex challenge that needs a holistic approach. You can't come at it in one way. You have to come at it in multiple ways. So that's our vision, value statements. People deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and will function through an equitable, collaborative, and trauma-informed care lens. There's that phrase again. We also wanted to prioritize learning from those who have experienced housing insecurity and instability. A couple people on our board have experienced homelessness, and that was really important to us to have a few people on there who have that experience. And then recommendations for services and systems are based on consumer voice, data, and evidence, and promising best practices. Best practices are really important. There's almost no point in doing the work if we're not being driven by data and best practice. So into our strategies and recommendations, we came up with 6 of these, and I'll go through just each one super quickly here and then kind of go through each one separately in a little bit. So systems mapping, prevention efforts, street outreach, and I'll explain these a little bit more in a minute. Centralized intake systems for consumers, data collection and integrity, and communications. So those are our 6 areas of recommendations. So systems mapping. The term or the way I like to think about this is our current system is like a bowl of spaghetti. You can start on one end, but you don't know where the other end is. So, and that's not just for our consumers, that's often for our partner organizations and people working within the system as well. So we saw that as a huge barrier. We need to make our systems more clear and make it easier for people to navigate. So a few of the things we want to do within that: identify resources to create a comprehensive list of housing and other services available, create an actual visual for caseworkers so it's easier for them to understand and make referrals more easily, and ensure there's a system in place to continually update and maintain data. Again, we wanted to make sure data was driving us, so we have to make sure it's coming in accurately. And explore where consumers are most likely to experience wait time so that we can fix those and address service gaps, and expand mapping efforts to other community-based organizations in Aurora that are not just within the Aurora at Home Collaborative, but Aurora in general. So prevention efforts, this is all about working on preventing people from falling into homelessness. So we talked about creating a prevention stakeholder subcommittee, determining return on investments spent with COVID relief funds, making sure we have budgets for future work as well. And then we talked a lot about how our court system needs to work with, in conjunction with, or we need to work in conjunction with our court systems and create a strategy around that to make sure that people aren't falling into the justice system if they don't have to. And requesting that personal documents be added to databases. We have a lot of folks experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness who lose their documents. And once you don't have your vital documents, it's really, really, really difficult to get housed. So that's something that many of our service providers recommended and voiced. Engage with others to understand and participate in regional approaches. We talked about regional approaches a lot while we were doing this. We don't want this to just be an Aurora thing. This needs to be regional to make it work. Yeah, work on education campaigns for tenants and landlords. That's something we're already working on a little bit. That's going to be in conjunction with the housing locator tool that we have and those classes that we have started as well with the landlord recruitment trainings. And centralized case managers that can refer to other organizations. A lot of these things we can kind of roll into the navigation center and work really well into that as we start thinking more about how that's going to look. And then create a landlord incentive fund to incentivize working with tenants. That was something that was recommended. Street outreach, and this is street outreach for people experiencing homelessness. We already have an outreach coordination team that meets monthly. We also have a coordinating team that meets weekly just to go over what abatements are happening, to make sure that our outreach teams are meeting with people beforehand and during abatements to make sure they're receiving services that they need. But we also want to improve the coordination, make that stronger, reduce duplication. That's something we're working on. And clarify referrals, understand staff turnover, how to support organizations. One thing that's difficult for folks who have built rapport with their clients, or for clients specifically, is when their that staff member leaves and then they have to start all over and tell their story again and learn to trust whoever they're working with. So working on staff turnover is important. And then creating staff development program to make sure everyone's on the same page and using the same language, that kind of thing. And just have folks visit other organizations so they have a better understanding of what everyone's doing. And then a centralized intake system for consumers. This is something we've talked about a lot, and this could be in conjunction with a navigation center as well. Kind of creating a one-stop shop. This one fits really well in with the system mapping as well, just to make things easier for consumers and like case managers within the system. So yeah, regional collaboration, creating a group of centralized intake staff, utilizing existing shared data systems for legal identification and intake. Well, we talked about potentially using something like the My Colorado ID. That's a web app. It's really useful. Again, talking about legal identification is important. And then implement and evaluate shared intake staffing and replicate successful efforts. We don't need to reinvent the wheel if we already have some things that are working. We maybe just need to bring them to scale. And data collection and integrity. Primarily, we use HMIS, which is the Homeless Management Information System. That's mostly what we use for data with homelessness, that and the point in time count. But we would like to create a committee to work on data and make sure it is successful and as accurate as possible. Create a data-driven inventory of housing available in Aurora. Again, that's along with the housing locator tool that we already have. As we start beefing that up a little bit and getting more landlord and property owners in there and listing their units, it'll be an even stronger tool. And just promote data sharing to understand gaps and successes. That might look like creating some MOUs between organizations or municipalities, and utilizing data to better communicate challenges, opportunities, and successes. Again, we want to make sure we're doing things based on data and what we're seeing in real time, rather than what we saw 6 months ago or what our single point in time count said at the beginning of the year. And lastly, communications. Again, this one also fits really well in with the system mapping and creating like centralized intake. Just making sure that we're improving communication between Aurora at Home members and making sure everyone has a good understanding of what everyone does. And increasing communication with external partners so that we can try to pull more people into the Aurora at Home collaborative and just make sure everyone has a better understanding of what Aurora at Home is. And increase regional awareness and create external communication plan and strategy. Sorry, I'm trying to talk fast, so I'm tripping over my words. So those are our 6 strategies. So implementation and next steps. Yeah, so like I said, we finished this in August, and now we'll be planning on implementing it through 2023 and through 2026. And we really think these recommendations will help improve the conditions for people experiencing homelessness in Aurora, especially as we do them in conjunction with the housing strategy that Alicia just went over. We don't want to silo ourselves. We need to do everything in conjunction and make sure we're really using all of our resources in the best way possible and working with other organizations and other municipalities to leverage all the resources we have communally. And I believe that was my last slide. Any questions on that? This was informational.
Thank Councilmember Murillo. I got a
Go
couple.
ahead, Councilmember Medina.
Thank you. I'll make them kind of brief. Yeah. Have you done any, I guess, studies or information regarding access to a cell phone?
Not that I'm aware of. That's something we could look at doing, certainly through this strategy. A lot of clients do get cell phones. There's still some resources out there. People fondly still refer to them as Obama phones, for instance.
Yep.
Yeah, things like that. But that's something we could certainly work on. I'll bring that to the next meeting.
Well, I have somebody that I have access to do that, so I was just curious about what that would be. I know they do it was $40 activation fee to set it up, and they get, I think, 2 or 3 years of service free.
Okay.
So to utilize it, I was just wondering if it would help with, having them access if they needed a shelter at some point and they couldn't, get to a place, that they could call you or call a place to, for expediency purposes, that maybe it would help somebody to have access quicker. So that was just a question. And also, have you thought about any strategies too? I've talked to a gentleman who's been working, I'm going to be meeting with him next week, who's been working with some of Denver's homeless, and he was homeless himself for 5 years in the streets. And he had mentioned some things that I've thought about as well is, a lot of the things I think that people in the communities don't like, about the unhouses, just mainly the unkeptness, right? The amount of trash. And he started just picking up trash on his own. And I was wondering if we could I could potentially get some funding sources probably, to fund something where we would pay somebody at an encampment to clean it up.
To clean up the encampment, not get rid of the encampment, just to clean up around it.
Just clean up all the trash and, because as well as I, as somebody eats, they've got food, and if they don't have access to some, trash can right there, they're gonna just throw it wherever it is. And that just accumulates obviously over time, depending on how much you eat, right? And it's just like anywhere else, right? If we didn't have a trash service, all our trash would be out in the front of our yards. So I'm just curious about that. If there's an opportunity, if you guys are looking into that, I would be willing to look at some funding sources to be able to maybe pilot something like that, just to see if that would help.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we could look into, and I would love to continue having that conversation with you, Councilmember Medina. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Marcano.
I didn't have any questions. I got a sneak preview of this presentation last week as well. So thank you, Emma and Jessica, for all the work y'all have put into this. And yeah, I just really appreciate hearing, from y'all. We're going to be doing, what is evident. Our strategies are going to be evidence-based, and we're going to be doing our best to collaborate with other jurisdictions and regionally, because I think that's how we address this issue. So my thanks to y'all.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation. All right. We have just over 20 minutes at this point. And I don't recall, Jessica, you might help me here, which items we pushed back from last meeting. And I think the only item, I think it's definitely 4.7, it needs a vote. And 4E, it sounds like.
So 4C should be very quick, and then we do need to move 4F forward. So if we can do those two items, 4D, like I said, we needed to move anyway, and then 4E, there is information in your backup. This was information council had asked for, so we don't necessarily need to do a presentation on that, and can communicate on any questions. That would be the priority, those two, 4C and 4F.
4C and 4F. What's the is that because the neighborhood engagement is pushed back from the last meeting?
Yeah, it was pushed back from the last meeting. So, and it's informational only. So, It's up to you all. If you want to just take a look at the backup, that's fine too.
No worries. I'm going to put it a little bit out of order if we have all of our staff available. I just make sure that we're able to move 4-7 and that we don't run out of time. So I'm gonna do we have our staff presenter on for F?
Yes, that's Emma as well.
Yep,
It's
that
just
is me.
it's a quick agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with that one to make sure that we get like the direction you need on that.
Sure. So this is just our Clean the World global agreement. That's our shower trailer that provides showers and restrooms to the safe outdoor spaces and a couple other locations around town for hygiene. And yeah, I just needed to move forward to study session if possible so that we can get the agreement moving. And yeah, it's going to be slightly more expensive than last year, but only by a little bit due to increases in like cost of living. But we already purchased the shower trailer; it's ours to own. So really, it's just the operational that we're paying for at this point.
Okay. Are there any committee questions on the agenda item for F? I'm seeing head
Councilmember
nods.
Murillo?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wondered, do we have utilization data for the trailer? And I guess I also wanted to know, I think it was, I'm trying to find the exact verbiage here, that it was an additional 238,000. Does that mean an additional for this next contract period, or on top of what what the original agreed upon contract price was when we began this initiative last year?
It's just for this year's the new contract. It's not additional on top of.
Okay.
I think last year was like 220 something thousand, so it's an additional like $10,000 I think for cost of living.
Okay. Yeah. So that's y'all consider that a reasonable increase then?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And utilization.
Utilization. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. I don't have that information at the moment. I could certainly get it. I do know from word of mouth and from speaking with everyone at the Safe Outdoor Spaces that they are heavily used, and if anything, they would like more showers available,
Okay. Good.
which is something we're working on. So yeah, they are well used.
Yeah. Awesome. And just, to clarify, I support this. I just wanted to know that information because I think this is something that we need to be conveying to our residents. Like, here's, all the things that we're doing, they're being used, they're making an impact. So thank you.
Yeah. And I can get that utilization info for you and I'll send it your way.
All right. Appreciate that.
Yeah, especially before this comes before the full council, I think that'll be important to share. If that included in the backup for the agenda item.
Yeah, we'll do.
Awesome. All right. Do you guys support moving this forward?
Yes.
I think Councilmember Marcano said yes, and I also support.
I'm good too.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, Medina. All right. That is for F. I'm gonna move still out of order, kind of reverse order. 4E is also informational only, although now I'm confused because I was asking to move to a study session presentation. But let's start with agenda item, or let's go with agenda item 4E, and then we'll move to 4C.
Sandra, are you ready? Okay, yeah, I'm ready. I just thought that, yes, I am. And let me see, share. And let me just clarify on my presentation, I wasn't really sure what that question should be. So it was just informational only. It doesn't necessarily have to go to study session. So is everybody seeing the presentation? Yes. Yes, thank you. Okay, so this is informational only actually regarding House Bill 221137, which was signed by Governor Polis in June of 2022.
The bill was concerning the practices of HOAs and authorizing the enforcement of certain matters regarding unit associations in small claims court and limiting the conduct of unit owners associations in collecting unpaid fees, assessments, and fines. Under the law, it prescribes how the HOA can collect dues. It prohibits late fees and fines for violations. It designates the time frame for life safety, getting those situations corrected, and that the fine can be assessed by the HOA if it's not done in that particular time. And then talks about non-life safety violations and how that process works with the HOA dealing with their residents, and that it can take action to small claims court. So it concerns the neighborhood and how HOA leaders on enforcement, concerns from the neighborhood and HOA leaders on enforcement came to we kind of heard about that management companies may not be doing enforcement of their own bylaws within their community, that they may be sending complaints onto code enforcement. So there was a concern that may cause some influx of complaints to code when the property management can actually address the issues, which may impact code enforcement ability to address violations in areas which do not have covenants in place. So it was just information only to you all. We have had a few calls come to us regarding management company not wanting to take care of, let's say, unlawful vehicles and such in the neighborhoods, but we've handled those as we normally would. So we haven't seen a huge influx, so that's why this is just informational only.
Thank you. Councilmember Medina or Marcano, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Not at the moment on these issues.
Thank you.
And since I think that would be sufficient. Sandra, do you think it sounded like you put both questions just as not sure which question to put, but
sure. Yeah,
that's okay.
No need to go on. Unless I don't think we need to go forward.
I mean, I'm sure we'll discuss this at Pfizer as well. But I appreciate you bringing this to the committee too, since obviously it does impact kind of our scope of issues for the committee as well. Alrighty, thanks, Sandra.
Thank you.
And last but not least, 4C neighborhood engagement update. I just want to thank whomever the staff, is that you, John? Thank you for your patience. I apologize for having to have rescheduled and then kicking you to the bottom of the meeting. I just wanted to make sure we got through any business that needed a vote, and obviously the timing didn't work out, and really interested to hear an update, and thanks for your patience in the process.
Yeah, not a problem, council member. And thank you for having us, and hello to everybody, all the other council members. So we're just going to do a quick presentation about the neighborhood engagement grant, give you guys an update on that. So let me go ahead and move my screen over. Okay, are you guys seeing the presentation now?
Not yet.
You don't? Okay, hang on. What did I do wrong here? Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Okay,
I
there
see your OneNote, or sorry, Teams.
Gotcha. Okay, oh, there's the agenda. Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
It's in the note version. If you would just go to display settings on the top.
Yep. Swap the presenter view.
The middle one, the next to show taskbar, right next to that.
Oh,
there's a
gotcha.
little caret under display settings. I can see your mouse.
Yeah.
And it's moving a lot. Okay, move your mouse to the top. It's in between show taskbar and end slideshow. If you click on display settings.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Sorry. One more. We'll try that one more time. I'm sorry.
No worries.
You need to have it open like totally separately as the PowerPoint.
It is.
Do you have screen two?
Oh, there we go. Okay, got it.
Now go to top display settings on the left screen.
Mhm.
Click that. There you go.
Gotcha. Okay. There we go. All right. So, the neighborhood
No,
engagement update. Oh,
hang on, I'm gonna be that guy because we're still seeing the notes slide. So at the top where you see display settings there, within the PowerPoint presentation, click that swap presenter. Yeah, that one. Perfect. All right, you're good.
okay, we got it. All right, perfect. All right. So, as you guys know, council approved $60,000 from the general fund for Aurora Neighborhood Improvement Grant Program. The program was designed to improve the appearance of Aurora neighborhoods. The goal was, of course, physical condition, enhancing neighborhood pride and identity, connecting neighbors and fostering some strong sense of community, and encouraging placemaking by bringing assets to the neighborhood and encouraging and gathering positive experiences. So we wanted to give you an update of how things are going. Over the last year, we've funded 14 separate projects for a total amount of $59,410. And we have the breakout down. It looks like there's been project in every single ward, but here are the projects by ward number. Ward 4 has been the most prevalent to use this grant. Moving along, here's some project highlights. This first picture is the Northwest Aurora Neighborhood Organization's cleanup project. So this is removal of trash and debris. Up next is the Sunflower Condominium Landscaping Project. So this was off of Hamden and Chambers in Ward 4. And they redid kind of a bare patch of grass into some new landscaping. This is the Mission Viejo Neighborhood Association. There's Quincy side landscaping rocks were kind of in disarray, so they used their grant funding to replace some of the landscaping rocks there. This next one is Shadow Creek down in Ward 6, kind of south of Arapahoe in the Saddle Rock area. And they redid their whole front area landscaping. And so there's some before and after pictures. And then finally, we have the Sunridge Patio Homes off of Mississippi and Peoria in Ward 3. And they redid a small area of landscaping as well. And that actually concludes my presentation. So like I said, real quick, just a quick update. So if anybody has questions or anything about the grant, I'd be happy to field those at this time.
Yeah, Councilor Murillo. Thank you. So John, thank you for that presentation. And I'm glad to see that this program is getting well utilized. I've already had a lot of folks reaching in asking when are the applications going to open up again? So do we know?
Applications, it depends on the grant. So for the neighborhood improvement grant, it looks like they won't be available until the beginning of next year. October 31st is the cutoff for that particular grant, but we are still accepting printing grants as well as Know Your Neighbor grants are still open.
Okay. So yeah, I was looking at the neighborhood improvement one specifically. So we don't have a date certain for next year for the grants, the grant portal to open up, I guess, the application portal.
As far as I understand it, it opens the first of the year, but I will
January
double
1st.
check that.
Okay.
Yeah, January 1st. So I will double check that if that's inaccurate, and I'll let you know specifically.
All right, great. Thank you, John.
All right.
Councilmember Medina, any questions?
Oh, good. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you, John, for your presentation.
Thank you, guys.
And I think I missed 4D, apologies, the Aurora Mobile Response Team updates.
So Councilmember Murillo, this will move to December, as I mentioned.
Oh, I
under
apologize. Yeah.
announcements. No worries. I did want to clarify for items 4A and B that we would move those informational only to study session. We will definitely make sure that 4A is much faster, and we just wanted to give a little more extra context for this group. But as long as the committee's okay with moving those informational ones just to study session.
I don't have any objections. Councilmember Marcano or Medina?
None for me.
None. Good.
Okay, and just for clarity for staff moving forward, if there's a request for or an interest in presenting it to study session, should they list it as informational only or move to study session? I guess like what would be the right way to kind of codify that so that we make sure we, obviously are giving y'all the direction that you need.
We can certainly work with the clerk's office on that. A lot of times it's informational only and we want to move it to study session. So we may just be clicking both. The informational only tells us there's not a decision point that we need from council or a resolution to pass or something like that. But we may just start clicking both and see how that works. But we'll check with the clerk's office to see how other policy committees are doing it as well.
Perfect. Okay. That makes sense. All right, I think we've gone through our agenda items, the content. Are there any updates from community who might be joining the call? Any questions that we can address or updates? Okay, I'm not seeing any. And I think that wraps up our meeting. Just to confirm with the team, December 1 at 10 a.m. Is that still work for you all for the December meeting?
Works for me.
Yep.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks everyone for your time and have a good rest of your day. And we will see you next month.
Okay. Thanks.